My name is Justin, and welcome back to Amelie. We are going to be continuing from where we left off. We just went through Amelie's route, so if you have not seen that video, make sure to check that out first. I'm playing it in order, and I believe you need to in order to get the full story. So make sure you watch part one. This will be part two, and I'll be covering, if there is two different sides of this route, I'll be covering both, because it says, like, here, I'll just press this. It says 0 out of 2, so I don't know if that means there's two different ways to approach this. If there is, I'll probably try to cover both in this video. And then once I do that, I'll make a separate video for Lilica. But anyways, let's go ahead and go on into this. So there was some weird stuff going on in the last route. Let's just say that. Hopefully we get a little more context in this. The rain never seems to cease at this time of the year. It pours from the sky in its unending grief as if longing for something unseen. Thunder roared in the distance, enough so to make the young woman flinch, but not enough to make her waver. The taxi gently rocked as the road turned to rubble, and the rubble turned to overgrown dirt track. Outside of the window, Sofia could barely see a few feet away through the raging storm. It made her feel uneasy. In her lap, a letter. She read the words again, despite knowing them by heart. Dear Sofia, how glad I am to hear that you are well. I am healthy, although I believe I may have a problem of the heart. It has gotten quite lonely waiting here for my parents to return. I am thankful to have Lilica residing with me, but I still await the day where my family will be reunited. But you say that it is safe enough for you to visit, truly? I've never even dared to dream of being able to see you in the flesh. If it is true, then I will await you at the address written on the back of this letter. Yours, Amelie. You sure you have the address right? We're in the middle of nowhere. Sofia stared at the fragile, handwritten address that Amelie had left her, had trusted to her. Yes, this was the right way, I'm sure of it. Her heart wouldn't settle. Meeting what could be a stranger in the middle of nowhere on a day like this, who wouldn't be nervous? Yet there was something else, eagerness, a thrill, something beyond mere nerves that turned into excitement. She could barely imagine the hand that had penned the letters she had been receiving for years on end, let alone a face. But for some reason her heart still beat hard when reading the words that the mysterious young lady of 19, from a manor far out in the middle of nowhere, wrote to her. Desperate to calm her jitters, she pulled out her phone, looking to send her worried family one last message of reassurance, only to find that it wouldn't switch on. I'm sure it was fully charged. The rain was falling even more heavily now. In the distance, a building sprang into view. It was surrounded by a tall metal fence with an ornate gate firmly shut at the front. Just then, the taxi sputtered and rolled to a stop, smoke rising from the hood. What the? I had this serviced a week ago. Is something wrong? Sorry, miss. Looks like we're out of action. It's okay. I think we're nearly there anyways. Pulling the cash from her wallet, she handed over her fare and stepped out of the car. Gosh, this just sounds like the haunting of Hill House. Like, this is, like, kind of eerie. The rain bucketed down from above, soaking her to the very core. She shivered as she dashed towards the iron gate. Surprisingly, it pushed open with little effort, and not even a creak. Sofia stopped in front of the large wooden door, finally free from the seemingly never-ending downpour. From afar, that door had seemed inviting enough, but now it looked awfully large and imposing. Yet she raised her fist and knocked anyways. Silence followed. Is this not the right place after all? The door swung open, this time with a low, menacing groan. On the other side of that doorway was a fair girl with long brown hair and golden eyes. Sofia, forgetting the fact that she was soaking wet, rushed forward and embraced the girl. Amelie! Sofia! Amelie's gentle arms wrapped around Sofia's back in return, and finally all of Sofia's worries melted away. My, you're completely drenched. Did you forget to bring an umbrella, perchance? Or perhaps her umbrella got carried away by the wind. Behind Sofia, the front door swung shut without any assistance. I didn't even think to bring an umbrella. The forecast said sunny all day. My fault for believing, I guess. I can't believe you're truly here. Me either. About time, right? You're just as pretty as I knew you'd be. And you too. But what are you wearing? Aha, seeing your house, I feel like I should have dressed up a little bit more. No, perhaps it is I that is overdressed. Sophia smiled. Somehow her dress sense seemed to fit her writing style perfectly, old-fashioned and yet very neat and respectable. Sophia felt a slight heat rising to her cheeks, so she really was refined and elegant. Pardon my manners, my dear friend Lilica is here too. I believe I wrote about her in the past. I remember, I've kept all your letters safe, don't worry, as you should. Haha, sorry, but is there any chance you have a towel? Of course, my apologies. I would usually have someone here to attend to us, but everyone's been sent home. Only the three of us remain. Let me fetch you a towel. So real quick, guys, have you noticed yet? I'm gonna ask. Now, take a second and ask yourselves, what am I talking about? Okay, you got it? Notice we haven't seen Lilica at all yet. She was the one who answered the door, but I don't think we really acknowledged Lilica at all. So, is Lilica even there? I'm thinking back to the dialogue for the first route. Did they ever actually, communicate to each other? She always said that her friend was there, but, does she actually know that she's there? I'm just totally making a guess here, because we haven't seen her yet, and that seems a little bit weird to me. Sofia peered up at her from below before she disappeared down a hallway into another room. This really is a manor. When she told me about her house, I almost didn't believe it. A layer of dust rested against the tabletop, along with a few other items. On the set, a newspaper sat open. So we can look at the tabletop or look at the newspaper. Let's go ahead and put a save here. Empty, always. Interesting. I will look at the tabletop. Sofia ran her finger over the tabletop. The wood was carved with an intricate pattern that rounded around the edge of the surface. Her hand reached to pick up a book that laid face down. Behind Sofia, the window began to shake in the wind as her fingertips grazed the surface. It's so windy. She spun around just in time to see the front door fly open, and the howling wind filled the entryway. She scrambled to the door and with great effort shut it again. Phew! Amelie? Yeah. Where's Lilica? Lilica was there the whole time. Or at least she went with Amelie. So, this is really weird to me. It seems like the house is a little bit haunted. That's kind of my guess what's going on here. When Sofia spun back around, the newspaper and the items on the table were all gone. Oh. Sofia. Oh, Amelie. Please use this. Thanks. I'll bring an umbrella next time, I promise. Sofia took the towel in her hand. It was soft but somewhat old. She lightly dried her hair and clothes, but she found herself cold. Now, then, if you're now dried off, would you care for a tour of the house before afternoon tea? That sounds great. On your right is the pantry, and down the hall is the boiler room, but you shouldn't have any need for those spaces. The two walked side by side alone in such a big manor. These are all guest bedrooms. I prepared this one for your use. If you find anything not to your standards, you can let myself or Lilica know. Amelie, I have a feeling your standards are much higher than mine. I've never been in a house that looks like this. No? Is your house not similar? Well, it's a lot smaller. There is no shame in that. You own your own property, yes? Yes, I recently bought it. With your husband? What? No, of course not. I'm not married. Your father allowed you to buy property on your own? Ahaha, Amelie, you speak just how you write. I'm so surprised. And you speak quite casually. People usually say that about me. Being here around you makes me want to be more formal. What need is there of formality between friends? That's true, too. This is a morning room, and next door to the dining room, we'll be having afternoon tea in the sitting room here. So many rooms. Upstairs is my bedroom and the master bedroom. I must ask that you don't enter the master bedroom, as it belongs to my parents, who are currently away. From the landing below, Sofia could see the door to the master bedroom. For some reason, her eyes were glued to it. Come inside, open the door. We're waiting for you. Gosh, I'm not gonna lie, that gave me chills. I don't know why that scared me the way it did, but I was like, oh. Of course, I won't go poking around anyways. Okay, she definitely goes poking around during the night. That's what happened. Gosh, that freaking scared me. I know something scary is gonna happen in this game, and I'm freaking out. All this walking has made me part. Shall we take afternoon tea now? Sure, that sounds good. Why don't you have a seat while Lilica and I prepare our food? Oh, I can come help. Defy your fate. Nonsense, you are my guest. It would be remiss of me to allow you to lift a finger. Wait, I have a button I can press. I can press defy your fate. If you insist, but I'm happy to help anytime. Thank you, I'll be back soon. Please rest. Amelie. It's nothing. Take your time. Actually, is it okay if I ask you something? Of course it is. Is there someone else in this house with us? There's no one else apart from myself, you, and Lilica. And Lilica is... She's just gone into the kitchen. Didn't you see her enter? Right, my vision must be playing up. Is something the matter? No, no, it's fine. I'll wait for you inside. Oh gosh. Something's gonna happen. Oh my gosh. I'm not prepared. The room was spacious and dead silent apart from Sophia's footsteps as she crossed the wooden floor. Each step was deliberate and slow as her eyes searched through the room. Nothing in particular stood out. Large windows showed a glimpse of the outside world through thick curtains. The rain was still coming down hard, obscuring her view. The windows shook every now and then, but the wind had seemed to die down a little. Behind her, a chair at the dining table had been pulled out as if it were waiting for her to sit down. Amelie, was that you? Amelie? Her head rested against her chest, begging her heart to calm. Or Lilica? Whether a hollow laugh sounded through the room or not, she wasn't sure. She quietly sat down in the seat that was left for her. The table was already set, but once again she noticed a thin layer of dust on the surface. Through the silence, Sophia could hear it again. Footsteps, but this time from directly above. The master bedroom? In front of her very eyes, Sophia watched the scene unfold. A woman not older than 40 removed her shoes and stepped onto the table, yet nothing was disturbed. She reached up and took a hold of the noose. The rope wrapped around her neck like the finest pearl necklace. Join me. The woman's eyes locked onto Sophia's. Her hand was outstretched, waiting to be taken. A rusty smell filled her nose, accented with the faint smell of perfume. Sophia shivered in response, her breath frostily on her lips. She reached for the hand, slowly. I'm back. So, are we not going to talk about that? Okay. Should I press to define my fate again? Oh, Amelie. I'm sorry, you scared me. Is everything alright? Sophia stared at the spot the woman was only a moment ago. Both she and the noose had disappeared. Amelie, something is the matter, isn't it? Did something happen within this room? Happen? What exactly do you mean? Did a woman with brown hair tied to a bun in a dark green dress ever live here? Well, it sounds to me like you're describing my mother. Your mother. Yeah, she's just as you described, but you couldn't have seen her here. She's still away. Right. That's what I'd be saying, Sophia. You should get out of here. Let me pour us tea before it gets cold. Will Lilica be joining us? I believe so. Was she here a moment ago? No, she wasn't here. How strange. She told me she was coming to sit with you. Perhaps she's gotten herself busy with something else. Should we wait? There's no need. It would be sad to let the tea go cold. Sophia watched as the tea filled 2 out of 3 of the cups. The third cup sat empty. For some reason, the very sight filled her with dread. She picked up the cup and brought it to her lips. It was oolong tea. Ooh, I wonder if that's affected by our first choice. The taste was bitter and musty. With her heart on edge, she placed the cup back down on the saucer, smiling towards Amelie. Did you have much trouble getting here? A little. My ride broke down, so I had to walk for a bit. Broke down? I'm extremely sorry. If the staff had been here, I would have sent someone to collect you. It's okay. It's just a little rain. I just wouldn't want you catching a fever. My medicine store has been running low of late. No worries. I usually just carry ibuprofen with me. Ibuprofen? I haven't heard of it. Gosh, this is all coming together. Like, are you guys piecing this together like I am? This house is frozen in time. There's a reason that they mentioned those plants being dead. It seemed like the house just wasn't very well taken care of. There's a thin layer of dust on everything, like it's not been used in a while. Are you understanding? I'm understanding. I'm getting it. Amelie sipped at her tea before looking down at it with a confused expression. A little stale. I'll ask my father to procure a new batch when he arrives home. The tea's stale, it's not fresh. I will say though, it doesn't seem like everything's too old. So I'm wondering like how that works. Well, we were separated due to the plague. Also, she's mentioning plague. Now, if we're talking about like nowadays, you know, with like a pandemic and everything, I don't think we usually mention it as a plague. So that makes me think like there's some other kind of sickness she's talking about. I'm not really well versed in all the plagues that she could be talking about. Right, I understand. I spend a lot of time separated from my family due to the pandemic too. Like, see, they think they're talking about the same thing and they're not. It warms my heart to find another thing in common with you, Sophia. I was surprised to hear that it's safe enough for you to visit. Perhaps this means my parents will be back soon. I think so. The world seems to be opening back up again. So what do you do locked up in this big house all the time? Well, I usually spend my time sewing or playing music. I used to write, but... Well, my parents wondered if it was feminine enough. I don't really think that matters. If you enjoy it, then I say you should do it. Sophia, then what about you? Well, I'm studying art at a university right now, so I guess that's what I spent most of my time on. You attend university? Yeah, although I'm thinking about dropping out. Sophia, you are truly filled with surprises. You own your own land and you attend school. How jealous I am. Why don't you do the same? Oh no, I'm not allowed. Of course you are. Anyone can attend within reason. But, well... Oops. Excuse me. Wouldn't it get in the way of my marriage? You're engaged? Amelie shook her head. No, not yet, but I'm already 19. I'm sure my father has prepared my dowry. An arranged marriage? Yes, naturally. I don't think I'll ever get married. Really? Doesn't your family object? I don't think they really mind as long as I'm happy. You don't have to either, you know. You've given me so much to think about, much indeed. Now I wonder where Lilica has disappeared to. Well, it's no matter. The evening is already coming, and soon it will be dark. Should I draw you a bath? That sounds wonderful. To be honest, I'm not hungry, so can we skip dinner tonight? Of course, if that's what you wish. Let me show you to the bathroom. Before she left for the room, Sophia took one last look back at where the noose once hung. You may not believe it, my father had taps installed. Isn't that wonderful? That explains why they just had taps installed, because this house is really old. It's not from this time. Like, taps for a bath? That's right, we used to have our maids fill the bath, but now there's no need. Everything's coming together so quickly. Ahaha, Amelie, you're so strange. I have taps in my house, too. Truly, you must live quite the lavish lifestyle yourself. I don't know about that. This is the bathroom. Allow me to draw the bath for you. One moment. Alone in the hallway, Sophia peered up the grand staircase, past the large stained glass window, and at the dark doors shut tight. A moment later, Amelie popped back out of the bathroom. Feel free to go inside and make yourself comfortable. I will return with a towel in a moment. Thanks, Amelie. Water spewed from the rusted pipes into the steel-lined bathtub. Everything else was silent. Sophia took careful steps forward and peered into the bath. All seemed normal. With a sigh, she finally let her shoulders relax, yet in her mind, all she could see was that woman with her outstretched hand reaching towards her. She clutched her hand to her chest. It still shook. Sophia stumbled forward until her hands rested on either side of the washroom basin. Her fingers held on tight until her knuckles were bone white. It's okay, Sophia. You're just tired. Her eyes traveled up to the mirror. It was embellished with a golden frame. She stared at her reflection. She was still herself. It was all a figment of her imagination. That's when she saw it. In the mirror, standing behind her, was a young woman with long blonde hair that nearly reached down to the floor, deep blood-red eyes. She didn't try to speak or make any movement. She just stared at her with big dark eyes. Who? Sophia wanted to spin around to confront the girl, but her whole body was frozen stiff. The young woman finally started to move. One step at a time, maintaining eye contact with the mirror, she crept closer, closer and closer until Sophia swore that she could feel her breath on the back of her neck. Her mouth seemed to be moving, but no words escaped her lips. Who are you? She spun around, but no one was there. Huh. The water overflowed from the tub, spilling out over the floor. Sophia rushed forward to turn off the tap and noticed it. Notice what? The water that came from the tap was red, a dark, deep red. She hurriedly turned the tap for what felt like forever, and finally it stopped. Sophia stared at the dark liquid inside the tub. Without thought, her hand dipped in, but when she withdrew it, each finger was dyed red. Something about it captivated Sophia. She undressed one layer at a time, peeling away the still damp clothing and stepping forward into the bath. She sank down until everything under her shoulders was submerged in the liquid. It felt heavier than water, much heavier. As she stared directly ahead, those blood-red eyes were in her mind. Why not just end it here? You're scared, aren't you? Just sink down. Accept your fate. Accept it? She could no longer hear the sound of the door opening as her face sunk down into liquid, her eyes shut. Sophia! I knocked but didn't hear a reply. I brought you a towel. Oh gosh. This game's getting worse and worse as it goes. Sophia's eyes sprung open. The water was clear and the tap was still running, causing it to overflow into the floor once again. Sophia drew her knees to her chest, still facing away from Amelie's voice. Heat rose to her cheeks, being seen like this by her. Oh, Sophia, please forgive me. I didn't realize you'd already entered the bath. No, it's okay. I'm sorry. You just surprised me. I'll leave the towel over there. Thanks. The door shut again. Sophia finally turned back to look at where Amelie once stood. No one was there anymore. Not Amelie, not a woman in a long green dress or a young lady with blonde hair. She sighed. What's going on? She sank into the water, although this time fully conscious of what she was doing. Not feeling at all that much better, she stepped out and took a hold of the towel that Amelie had left her. Water fell from her body as she stared at the cloth. The towel was pink, similar to her favorite hoodie. The towel was old and full of holes and what seemed to be burn marks. Reluctantly, she wrapped it around her body. From outside the door, Amelie's voice called out to her. Let me come help, Sophia. When you're done in there, you can come to my room. Okay, thanks, Amelie. Who is she helping? Lilika? She shivered. The room had become awfully cold, and the towel did little to bring her warmth. She picked up her discarded clothes and redressed. Her clothes felt foreign and wrong on her. Sophia took a deep breath and swallowed hard. I'm okay. Oh gosh, it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Sorry, I'm having to take a moment to mentally prepare myself. The hall was already darkened, with no light spilling in from the windows. A few sconces attached to the walls were lit with live flames, but it offered little in the way of calming her. Step, step, step. The floor creaked under her weight. She stopped outside of her bedroom. Inside, she could hear talking. She put her ear to the door. Didn't we already speak of this? You cannot leave the house. But surely the greenhouse would be safe. No one else uses it and is only a few steps from the back door. It is unsafe. You know this. What's gotten into you? Is it because of your friend? I just thought it would be nice at least to sit in the sun. She's talking to herself. I just realized that. Look, it still says Amelie. Then you may sit by the window in the dining hall. Is it really so unsafe that even taking a foot outdoors would be dangerous? Yes. Sophia opened the door and entered the room. Amelie stood by herself making the bed. Sophia, I see you're done with the bath. Sophia looked away, thinking of what happened in the bathroom. Were you talking about the greenhouse? Yes, did you see it when you arrived? I did, but it looked as if the plants inside had died. Well, that's impossible. It's been barely any time at all since the gardeners left. I'm sure the plants inside are more sturdy than that. Well, even if they had died, maybe we could go in and replant some things tomorrow. How wonderful. Have you not heard a word I said? It is unsafe to do so. Oh. Don't be such a spoil sport. I think it would be perfectly fine. Now she's just straight up talking to herself in front of her. Well, I think it's getting late now, so I'll leave you to retire. If you need anything, my room is just upstairs on the left. Good night, Sophia. The door shifted before Amelie could even reach to touch it. Sophia's eyes locked in on that movement. Amelie, would you stay for a while? Something the matter? Just a little homesick. Sophia sat down on the bed before resting her head on the pillow. It was hard. Of course, why don't we chat for a while? Then come join me. Sophia gently pet the spot beside her in the bed. In the bed? Ah, okay. Sophia looked towards Amelie in the low light. Right now she seemed hauntingly beautiful, as if she were nothing more than a ghost. What are you trying to say? Thanks for staying with me for a while. It's nothing to worry about. Truly, I wanted to spend more time with you too. Really? You don't find me boring? You are the most interesting person I've ever met. Don't be silly. I am being completely honest. You truly are so unique. I think the same about you. I've never met anyone like you, really. Her mind flashed back to all that she had seen. She truly had never met anyone like Amelie. You wrote so much about yourself, and yet seeing you in person, I fear that there is still so much I don't know. There's plenty of time for us to tell each other everything. Then tell me something about yourself, something you've never told anyone. I'm partially blind in the right eye. Really? How well can you see? It's okay, just a little blurry, I guess. You tell me something. Tell me something, she thought. Tell me what's going on here. Tell me that I'm not insane. Well, when I was 12, I stole the cookie jar from the kitchen and blamed my brother. He was scolded for hours. What a mischievous child. I'm sure your brother wasn't all too pleased. Actually, it was his idea. He knew I wanted it and told me to tell my parents it was him if I was asked. What a good brother. Where is he now? Did he go away with your parents? Amelie shook her head, excuse me. He died when he was 16. Oh, I'm sorry, what happened? Scarlet fever. Is scarlet fever even a thing anymore? Like, I don't think I've ever really heard of it. So my family was left with only me as an heir. Also, who has heirs anymore? What worth is a female heir? You're worth plenty, more than plenty. Thank you, Sophia, but some days I am unsure. It's your turn again. Truthfully, I said before I didn't want to get married, but that's not exactly right. I do. Oh? I just don't want a husband. Then, I'm sorry, does that make you uncomfortable? No. I also have thought that I don't want a husband. Whenever my father has brought it up, I felt sick to my stomach. How about coming away with me for a while? Away? Outside of the house? What about the sickness? Yes, away from this place. It's okay now. You'll be okay. You could come stay at my house. I could show you around my school. It all makes sense now. She was having all this stuff going on, and this is like freaking her out. You don't have to go through an arranged marriage if you don't want to. You would do that for me? You're my dearest friend, and I actually... I want to press to defy my fate again. Lilica? At some point, the two women had got close enough together that they could feel each other's breath on their lips. The two parted with reddened cheeks, Amelie quickly brushing her skirt off and standing up. I should be going to bed. Please rest well. We can talk more about it in the morning, right? Right. Good night, Amelie. I'll see you tomorrow. Amelie, wait a moment. Yes? What does Lilica look like? What a funny question. You've seen her plenty of times already. With my eye, I sometimes struggle a little. Right, my apologies. She has long blonde hair done up like this. Amelie pretended to put her hair into two low ponytails. What color are her eyes? Red, and she wears a dress of white and black with a red ribbon the same color as your eyes. Thank you, Amelie. Good night. See you in the morning. This is bringing so much nice revelation to us. I totally didn't realize the first run what was going on. I mean, I understood little bits of here and there. I knew that Amelie was a little bit crazy. Well, not so much Amelie, but Lilica was crazy. But now I'm realizing that Amelie's crazy. Meanwhile, Sophia's eyes studied the space. Okay, so we have the option here. If we want to accept our fate or defy our fate. I don't know if we need to go through all that again or if we can just decide here. We're going to defy our fate. Are you here, Lilica? Silence followed. If I stay here, will I live to see tomorrow? More silence. She gulped. The flame by the side of her bed flickered wildly. Sophia laid back, shutting her eyes, but she felt as if someone was watching her, waiting and biding their time. Cold tendrils wrapped around her throat like a snake, cool like ice and getting tighter and tighter. She couldn't breathe. She couldn't even move. She opened her eyes, but no one was there. Sophia wasted no more time. She jumped to her feet and quickly shoved them back into her shoes and headed for the door. It opened without any resistance. Outside the room, the hallway was dark, lit by only a handful of candles and sconces. Sophia swallowed and stepped out. The house was silent. Sophia took careful steps, but the floorboard still squeaked loudly beneath her. During the day, she hadn't noticed it, but now, wrapped in darkness, it seemed as if those small sounds would wake whatever was sleeping inside the house. Amelie? Lilica? She whispered, but heard no response. Upon being met with only more silence, her footsteps sped up. Far in the distance, she heard something shift. A slight sound, one that wouldn't normally be noticed. But for Sophia, it was enough to make her heart race. She sped to the end of the hall and stood at the bottom of the grand staircase. Above, her eyes honed in on two doors in particular. The master bedroom and the door to Amelie's room. Amelie. The choice was obvious. Sophia raced up the stairs and stood in front of the door to her pen pal's room. But as she went to knock, the door fell open. Amelie, are you in? She received no reply. Sophia's head spun around, and from somewhere deep in the dark, a gentle tune was being played skillfully. Her arms dropped to her side. The sound consumed her. Sophia drifted back out of Amelie's room, chasing that dreamy song. Step, step, step. Through the darkness, all that mattered was that sound. She came to the end of the hallway. A single door stood in her way. A bookcase was pushed to the side. Without a second thought, she pulled it open. Yeah, I feel like this is such a bad idea. Obviously, she's not very much control of herself right now. In the center of the room, surrounded by candles, Amelie sat. Her skirt fanned out around her. Spread out over the floor was piles of letters. Upon closer inspection, each was filled with words that had been crossed out and signed with yours, Marion. Amelie, are you awake? Her eyes were shut tight, yet her hands moved enough to play the sorrowful tune. Please listen to me, Amelie. Lilica isn't... I'm not what? You're going to leave her, aren't you? Sofia heard the door shut behind her. She backed up quickly and tried the handle, but it was stuck. Amelie's eyes finally opened. In place of her usual golden eyes was a glare of deep red. Amelie, snap out of it, please. Snap out of it. You want to take her away? Amelie, please. One by one, the candles blew out and the two were plunged into darkness. Amelie's body slumped forward and crashed to the ground. It's nice to meet you, Sofia. I'm sure we're going to have a fun time living together. Since you'll be staying with us after all, right? Okay, so that's side 2 out of 2. Interesting. So, pretty much Lilica is like possessing Amelie is what I'm hearing. Let's see if I can just load. I can load that other one back if that's gonna just change anything. Let's go to accept your fate. For some reason, Sofia couldn't just sit still. She tried to lay down to rest, but turned this way and that, uneasy. I'll get some water. The hallway was dark, with most of the sconces having been blown out already. Sofia stepped carefully through the space, conscious of the sound her footsteps created. The kitchen was by the stairwell. Hand-painted portraits were lined up in rows on either side of the hall. She stared up at the grand staircase. Each step was inviting, enticing her to make the ascent. With large eyes, she stared once again at the imposing stained glass window, and then to the doors that waited upstairs. Her hand rested against the kitchen floor, her fingers dancing over the handle. It stayed there as her mind debated within itself. Waiting, waiting. Come here. Come visit us. Her hand dropped to her side as she ascended past the glass window to the next floor. 2 doors awaited her. A chill ran through the air as the scene played out before her. 2 women dragged a man's body up the staircase, leaving a trail of blood on the otherwise pristine carpet. They pushed open one of the doors. The man's head hit the final step, and he made no move to stop them, nor cried out in pain. He was already long dead. The figures disappeared into the room. When Sofia blinked, the door was shut again. She trembled. The master bedroom. From behind the closed door, a voice called out to her, but the words were much too faint to make out. Her hand rested against the handle. Sofia couldn't stop it from shaking. With a careful motion, she pushed the door open. A musty smell came from further inside the dark room. Sofia, peering into the darkness, quickly took a hold of one of the lit candles near the room and stepped inside. Interesting. So the other one was like defying your fate, and she actually like ended up staying there. This one, we're accepting our fate. I wonder if we're like gonna find out more truth this way than the other way. A portrait sat above a large canopied bed. The curtains were pulled back, hiding whatever was inside. In the portrait, Amelie sat beside a woman with a green dress and brown hair done up into a bun. Standing behind them was a man with an imposing brow and a large beard. Is this man actually there? A family of mice ran from under the bed and out of the room. Sofia jumped to the side, nearly avoiding them. Step, step, step. Each step brought her closer to that bed. Each step made her chest feel heavier, tighter. She stood before the bed and reached a trembling hand to the curtains that hid whatever lay inside. A wind blew from somewhere unseen, and her candle extinguished. Behind her, the door shut, and the room plunged her into near complete darkness. Amelie, is that you? I'm sorry I came in here after you asked me not to. I'll just go now, okay? Her body fell forward before she had a moment to react. She tumbled through the curtains and landed on something hard that rested on the bed. What? The curtains flew open and the moon shone in from outside. Oh, lovely. We have guests. Look, these guys are so inviting. So nice. The body she was expecting to find was absent. In its place, 2 skeletons long ago decayed. They laid side by side, one smaller and the other larger. By now, one was on either side of her. Her screams pierced through the air, but no one came running. She desperately tried to squirm, to run, but it felt as if something was sitting on her, holding her down. As she struggled, she saw it. 2 dark red eyes hanging above her, watching. You won't take her away from me. Okay, so that was side 1 of that. So let's just make sure. So we have 2 out of 2. That's 1 out of 1, 2 out of 2. And then there's going to be 0 out of 3. Hold up. Does anyone else notice that? It says yours, Amelie, and then this one's shaking. Interesting. So anyways, guys, that was Sofia's side of things. So we finally got to see kind of what was going on. I'm assuming she's dead. It sounds like she got stabbed. But, interesting. So we're just going to go ahead and leave it there. And we're going to go ahead and go through all of Lily because I guess 0 out of 3s. See what her endings look like. This game's getting really good. I don't know about you guys. I'm really, like, hooked into this. It's not quite as scary as I thought it was going to be, and that's fine with me. I'm not complaining. I'm just pointing that out as I thought I was going to be jump scared a little bit more than I have been. But anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Make sure to check out part 1 if you didn't, or make sure to check out part 3, which is going to be Lily, because I'm going to be uploading here to get the whole story. But I'll see you guys on the next video.